find out. The Frizz led us outside to the old school bus. Dorothy Ann stopped to check her rain gauge. Wow, it rained a lot, she said. Nearly 2 inches this morning, said Tim. Did it rain some this week? It did. It rained some Monday and yesterday. Dorothy Ann wrote the information in her notebook. That's a school record. All aboard, called the Frizz from the bus. Here we go, said the Frizz, and all of a sudden there was a loud gurgling noise. Arnold's eyes widened. I have a feeling this isn't the way to Waterland, he said. Who said we were going to Waterland? Said Miss Frizzle. Why visit the water when you could actually be the water? Hold on. Suddenly the whole bus rose into the air. We felt cool and heavy. We were turning into water. With a big plop, we dripped right into Dorothy Ann's rain gauge. Can you see them? They become water and drop in there. Welcome to the real Waterland, said Miss Frizzle. Wanda floated happily inside the rain gauge. This is great, she exclaimed. It's nice and warm in here with the sun shining down. Can we stay all day? I don't think so, said Ralphie, who was starting to float up into the air. I think we're going up. Miss Frizzle nodded as she floated up too. When water is warmed by the sun, it evaporates or turns into a gas called water vapor. It's kind of a funny word, isn't it? Evaporate? Raise your hand if you've ever heard that word before. A couple of you have. I'm going to write it up here on the board. What do you guys, where can I put it down? Thank you. All right, we're going to put it down here. What did you guys think evaporate means? Someone who had heard it before. You have a guess, Mark Aquarius? No, that's not quite it. What do you think it might mean, Alexia?
It means that it's going to shake up into the air.
It's going to go up into the air, right? If I left water in a tiny cup and I left it here for several days, guess what would happen over time? It would get smaller and smaller and smaller because it would evaporate up into the air. And evaporate is when water, a liquid, becomes vapor. And so that's what they're doing right here in the book, is they're rising up and becoming a vapor. So we'll learn, we'll keep reading and see if we can find out more. Soon we had all turned into water vapor and were rising up into the sky. This is too weird, said Arnold. I wish I could be water again. You are water, Arnold, said Dorothy Ann, but right now you are a water vapor, which is a gas and not a liquid. It was getting cold way up there in the air. Brr, said Wanda. Hey, look, I'm turning back into droplets. Miss Frizzle smiled. This field trip was going according to her plan. Arnold is getting his wish. We're changing back into a liquid. We're condensing, said the Frizz. We're a cloud. So they rose up and evaporated, and then they did something on this book. It became cold, and they became clouds, and there was another word with a C. That is what they turned into, and it said they condensed. So we're going to do condensing. I'm going to write that up here, because these are two words that we may want to know in our journals. So what happened? They got hot, and they rose up, and then what did they do? They turned into clouds. They evaporated, and they turned into clouds and condensed. Okay. It felt tickly to be a cloud, especially when the wind started to blow. It blew us across some water and over a forest, then we formed one big cloud. Where are we? Asked Arnold. On our way down, I believe, answered Miss Frizzle. And sure enough, we were starting to drip. Our cloud was raining. So rain is the last step, which is called precipitation. Have you heard that word before?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So precipitation is another word for what? What's it another word for? What are types of precipitation? Yeah, rain, snow, hail, and sleet. So they were then becoming rain. We dropped onto leaves and slid down to the ground. Then we found each other again and started downhill. Go with the flow, class, said Miss Frizzle. What a ride. We ran downhill to a river which got bigger and bigger, and suddenly with a big whoosh, we went over a waterfall. Where is all this water going in such a hurry? Asked Phoebe when she came to the surface again. Water flows to the lowest spot, answered the Frizz, and there it is, the ocean. We made it all the way to the ocean. Good, said Arnold. Now we can rest. Sorry, Arnold, said Miss Frizzle. This is no time for rest. What do you think is going to happen next?
They're going to go after
They're going to what?
evaporate.
They're going to evaporate. Let's see what happens. Don't you feel the sun warming us? What happens next? We evaporate, said Arnold, uncertainly as we all rose up into the air. So they did. They evaporated again. Correct, called the Frizz. And when we reached cold air, she asked, what do you think they do when they reach cold air?
They go up to the sky.
They go up to the sky and they turn into
clouds.
clouds, right? And what's the other big word for that? Condensing. Yeah, that's the big word. But that's what they do is they form clouds. We condensed, said Phoebe happily. I love this part. We turn into clouds and the wind blows us somewhere. Again, moaned Arnold. This is not the last time either, Arnold, said Miss Frizzle. You mean water keeps evaporating, condensing, and raining forever? Gasped Arnold. Do you think that's the right answer?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Bingo, said the Frizz. That's why it's called the water cycle. It happens over and over and over again. In fact, I think we're about to rain again right now. We rained right back into our own school. Woo! Back at last, said Arnold. Then he looked through the window where he and Wanda had landed. Oh my, it's the girls' bathroom and I left the plug-in and the water dripping. Liz has it under control, said Wanda. Or is her tail stuck in the faucet? Liz nodded frantically as she tried to pull her tail out. We've got to get help, Liz, Wanda said. But how can we get into the bathroom? I have an idea, he said. We're water. We can get through the bathroom pipes. But to get through the pipes, we have to start at the waterworks. The real waterworks. Follow me. And Arnold found a sunny spot. Why do you think he found a sunny spot? Why do you think? Yeah, but why did he go to a sunny spot? Jeremiah? To evaporate again. The sun heats him up and he evaporates. And right away he evaporated. What could we do? We all followed Arnold. It wasn't far to the waterworks, and fortunately the wind was blowing in the right direction. Here we are, announced Arnold. We're right over the reservoir. Wanda was excited. This is where the water is stored and cleaned. So they keep on going, and they go through the cleaner and all the filtration, and they make it all the way back into the girls' bathroom, and they see Liz's tail is stuck in the sink. So let's see what happens. It's Liz's tail, said Wanda. She pushed it, and we all pushed, but it didn't budge. Liz's tail really was stuck. Well, I hate to do this, but it has to be done, said Wanda, and she bit Liz's tail. Hard. Now that the faucet was open, we all flooded into the bathroom sink, over the edge, and onto the floor. They all got everyone out, and they turned the water drip off. And at the end of the day, Miss Frizzle said, well, class, what did you think of the water cycle? And Wanda smiled. As usual, Miss Frizzle, your field trip really made a splash. Okay, so we talked about it. Now, what do we think? I want you guys to write again. I want you to make a little star on your paper. And I want you to write now, how do you think rain happens? I want you to write it again. If it was the same as what you wrote the first time, who can raise their hand and tell me now why they think it rains? Why do you think it rains? It rains to help plants grow, yes. But we talked, I'm going to drag around, the rain comes from what? Clouds. So that part of that was right. It comes from clouds. It helps plants grow. What about what Brianna said? Brianna, did you say this? What about how water comes from the ground up to the sky? Did we read about that today? Yeah. What is it called when water goes from the ground up to the sky? Evaporation, right? So evaporate. So the water goes, let me see if I can get a new one here.
Up at the top.
Okay, so the water's in the ground. We'll draw water down here. And where does it go? When the sun comes out, what happens to the water when it heats it up? It evaporates, right? It goes up.
You can't see it.
So the water goes up, and you can't see it because it becomes a what? This was a tricky word. It becomes vapor, which is a gas. So that's not too important. So it goes up. What happens when it gets up? Someone raise your hand. Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Raise your hand. What happens when it goes up? It turns into a cloud, right? And we call that condensing. So I'm going to write it on here. We've got evaporate. This is condense. And then what happens? Raise your hand. What happens next, Brianna? Together and they get really, really heavy. Have you ever seen a sponge? Yeah. And if you put a little bit of water in a sponge, it's not going to drip everywhere. But if I took a sponge and I just dumped it in a bucket of water and pulled it out and it was real heavy, what would the water do? You can raise your hand and tell me what the water would do. Alicia?
Splash.
It would splash. It would start dripping down, wouldn't it? Because it got so heavy it couldn't hold all that water. And that's what happens with the cloud. It becomes so heavy, and it can't hold all that water. And so what it does then is that it starts to rain. And what is this called? The long word for it. Precipitation, right. So we have precipitation, and then it goes back into what? Water, which then goes what? Yep, so we call it the water cycle. Why? Do you know what a cycle means? It's like a circle. It's another name for a circle. So does this just happen one time?
No.
No. Does it happen over and over? So next time it rains, do you know why it rains? A little bit? What do you think, Miracle? From the clouds, right? So I want you guys to take out your journals, and I want you to draw and write these key words on here, okay? And I'm going to set up something to show you, an example of it while you guys write that. It is, yes. It looks kind of... Think you guys forget? Right by the bathroom back there? You see this? What does it say? The water cycle. So Miss Harris has a poster of water evaporating, going up, condensing into clouds, and then precipitation coming down. And you can see the arrows because it's a circle.